Are we going to have anything on the screen?
Yes, I can put up to start with, I can put up our agenda, I guess. Just do that.
At what point is this person coming in?
They're actually already in the meeting.
Okay.
I heard two voices. Is that are they both the vendor?
We actually have on the meeting, let me just go ahead and pull that up 1 second. We have on our meeting Jeff Rosner. We have someone who's on an iPhone. Maybe you could identify yourself. We have Paul Kitchen, Jennifer Sparks. She is from the Print Elect, I guess, right? And Tyler is also from Print Elect. And I see Patricia Jones.
Hi, everyone. It's Nancy.
And, oh, Nancy, okay, thank you. Nancy on the iPhone. Okay, beautiful. Thank you very much.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. I call the meeting to order. Shall we join in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Yes, sir. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And present, Dan, would you identify yourselves and yourselves?
Sure. Daniel Pence, I am the registrar, City of Lynchburg.
Okay.
Betty Gibbs, Secretary of the Electoral Board.
David Levy, Chairman of the Electoral Board.
And Steve Troxel, Vice Chairman of the Electoral Board. I would like to point out that Paul Kitchen, who is joining us electronically, is the district representative for the Virginia Electoral Board
Yes.
Association.
Welcome aboard, Paul.
Thank you.
And others aside from Paul who are here remotely.
Jeff?
Jeff, are you here?
I think he's trying to find. There you go.
Okay, I unmuted. Yeah, I'm Jeff Rosner, and I'm the authorized representative and also the voter protection liaison for the Lynchburg Democratic Committee.
And then Nancy's on the phone. I think Nancy's using her iPhone.
Hi, it's Nancy Davis. I'm Deputy Registrar. Nice to meet you all.
Thank you. Others?
We have a couple from our vendor who's going to be presenting today.
Yes, my name is Jennifer Sparks and I am from Print Elect. And I'll be sharing my screen for the majority of the time to give everyone an idea of our product and our workflow.
Good.
I'm Tyler Links. I'm the Senior Virginia Account Manager for Print Elect, representing ES&S. We also have Chris Andrews, who's our Vice President of Sales, who is joining us from our Raleigh office.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having us.
For being here or being there.
And I think our last participant is Patricia Jones.
Trish,
Speechless.
are you there?
She might have a mic on her thing. It's possible she doesn't have a mic or a camera. She's just watching.
Okay.
So.
Well, welcome aboard. Okay, our next order of business is to the reorganization of the electoral board. We have to change that typo on reorganization.
Done already.
Okay, good.
I saw
I
it.
would like to make a motion.
Please.
I would like to move that David Levy be recertified as chairman, that Betty Gibbs be reappointed as secretary, and that Steve Troxel be recertified or reappointed as vice chair.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. One more participant in our meeting. Would you like to introduce yourself for the record?
Molly McClellan, citizen.
Thank you for coming out, Molly. being a real participant.
They're all real participants, they're just not here where we can see their smiling faces.
Okay, we have the agenda for this meeting as revised. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda and the minutes that have been posted for December 3rd meeting?
Make that motion.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? No. Are approved. Now, are there announcements?
Our minutes. Minutes.
The minutes and the agenda.
You did the vote?
Yes.
I didn't, that was my motion.
Oh, okay.
But anyway, I can change it.
Change your motion, amend your motion.
Yeah, two of us voted to include minutes.
Oh, got it, okay.
And I
Okay,
actually said
I heard it.
that. Yes,
got it. I just said I'll make the motions,
okay.
whatever you said.
Any announcements?
Mine are included in my report, so.
Okay, when's our next meeting? That should be February.
Yes, it'd be essentially, yeah, February, what, I guess,
The 6th,
the 6th, yes.
this is the first Thursday.
Okay. Shall we go into your?
I have an announcement that I was reappointed to the board.
Yes, well, we assumed that by the,
Not everyone knows I expired.
I have an announcement, I'm happy.
Okay,
Moving along.
okay. Any other announcements now? Registrar's report.
Okay, let me go ahead and open that up and make sure, see if everybody can see that. Okay, looks like that's showing it is. Registrar's report, January 7th, 2025. This just goes through essentially nothing too shocking in this report. Just go over some statistics. We'll look at the budget, where we stand with the budget, ongoing projects, and any announcements that we might want to share for this meeting. Look at registering counts by locality. This gives you a breakout of every ward and the active and inactive voters and sum total of voters, and also breakout of military, overseas, and federal voters for every precinct in Lynchburg. As you can see, we've moved up to about 61,387 voters as of 1/3/2025. This is about an uptick of about 2,000 voters, I think, since our last report. That includes all of the people who registered in the last month before the election, and also the registrants that happened same day on the election. I guess, just trying to think, inactive, we still have as the most precinct with the most inactive voters is, of course, a precinct at Liberty University. That's still got, what, about 2,000 or so listed as inactive. That means they are no longer reachable by mail. And the Department of Elections is going to be doing a confirmation mailing beginning February 7th. So they will reach out by mail to all of the inactive voters, not just ones in that precinct, but everyone across the board. And when we don't get a response from a voter who's on the inactive list, they will be purged from the system. That will take place probably early in March. So just so you know, that's a process that the Department of Elections is going to actually pull the trigger on it this year.
Are the three columns to the right of the bold vertical line, are those numbers included in the all column?
Yes, they're included in the all. It's just a breakout, so you can kind of get a sense of, those particular categories. But yes, they're included in the all.
And are they considered active for the most part?
That's a good question. So I don't know that they distinguish in those three columns whether they're active or inactive. So the report doesn't give us that detail, to my understanding.
We'll see after March.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah, so we may see those numbers change just as a result of the inactive
Okay,
people being purged.
Remind me, where the federal numbers come from?
So you have, and they overlap. That's one another reason why I say it about the inactive and active. Because federal voters are people who are overseas, but because but they're considered voters who were allowed to vote because their last place of residence was in Lynchburg. They're not entitled to vote in local elections or vote for local offices, but they are entitled to vote in federal elections for federal offices. And they have to have some connection.
Somewhere.
Yeah, they have to be working overseas. Like a lot of these people would be diplomatic employees or employees of federal contractors. And therefore they're US citizens and they're living abroad and they're entitled to vote in federal elections.
Okay.
I see from looking at last month's numbers for this, that the active voters is only 2 more this month, but the inactive is actually down by about 60.
So they're already beginning to purge.
Yeah, maybe, yes.
It was 6,400 some last month,
Yeah, hold on.
6,424. So, I mean, Department of Elections purchased them, right? That's what. you said.
They purge them or they come off the rolls because they move out.
Registered somewhere else or
Right,
something.
they move out.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so then that's good.
the purge is the main way that those voters come off because that's the kind of the bulk move.
Well,
But they do come off. from
Okay,
other
I
reasons.
just don't want to keep 6,000 people there and it never ever changes. Are these real people?
I mean, they were, at one point, they were legitimately registered according to our.
Well, for instance, the Liberty students who move out will go inactive on us. And once they re-register somewhere else, probably they'll disappear. The purge mechanisms of the state.
They only go inactive when we mail them something and it gets returned to us, but if they got what we mailed them.
And they're not inactive. I suspect.
Well, if they got, we mail them and they responded, right? So that's the key thing. When you send out the confirmation mail.
Not the confirmation, like their voter registration cards.
Right, they become inactive if we send them a card and they don't, it comes back by mail, yes.
How many voter registration cards, letters were sent out after same-day registration that were returned?
So that's a good question, and we actually are tracking that number. I don't have that number with me right now.
But some.
Yes, actually, I'm gonna just make a rough number, don't hold me to it because we're still doing the count. But I would say up to maybe 10%.
Wow.
Of the numbers, between 5 and 10% of the people who did a same-day registration, we got something back.
Bad addresses.
Yeah, so I want to, before we go too crazy over that fact, I'd like to do a little deeper analysis to figure out why maybe that's the case. But yes, I'm tracking that number for the reason you're asking it, which is I'd like to make sure that we know that when we get an address from a same-day registration, that it's a good address and that's, legitimate.
Exactly.
Legitimate voter.
now, when you're saying 5 to 10% of same-day registration. We had same-day registration of provisional ballots, and we had a bunch of ballots at Liberty that did not give a complete address.
Yep.
Are those included in those?
Yeah, so this is the analysis I want to do, is actually do a little deeper dive and figure that out. One of the things that we're looking at is, did people give us an address that was enough to get registered, but somehow wasn't deliverable by the university?
Well, are the percentages you're mentioning the percentages of same day who were registered by us or the same day?
Right, so this,
overall?
yeah, this was a voter, so what we did was, we did a voter, according to same-day registration, we send out a voter confirmation notice.
Of the ones we actually accepted.
Well, of all of them, right? So, and because some of them we've sent out a rejection to, so
Right.
if someone was not accepted, the vote wasn't accepted,
But
but we
I'm
had.
asking if the 10% is overall, including ones we didn't accept.
Yeah, right, so this is what I wanted, before I give you the full details, but that, we are looking at both what was accepted, what wasn't accepted, and what we think. And like I said, one of the questions I have coming out of this is, we don't have a lot of clarity into the reasons why Liberty or other schools might reject an address that we think is legitimate, but they don't. Like, for example, let's just say a student puts down a Flames box number. We have no way of knowing for sure that that's their Flames box number, right? And it might go to the school, you might think it's a legitimate address, and the school, because the vote name doesn't match that number, and they might return it to us.
I forget, did their identity card show the Flames box number?
Not necessarily.
No,
No?
they have, from my understanding, they have some type of, not on their student ID card, but they do have some type of identification card that they get at the beginning when they sign up for school that has all their information on it. But that's it. Some, they put it away and they don't even know what their Flames box number is when you ask them that. They'd be like, "Oh," and then until you tell them, say, they gave you a Flames box number, then they'll sit there and remember it. Other than that, they don't know what it is.
That may be something we need to tighten up next time.
I
Sorry.
had one guy sign up, he flipped through his photos, he took a picture of a box that his parents sent to him, so he would have a picture of his Flames box number, because he had no clue.
Yeah. So
Remember it.
so rather than immediately say that these are not legitimate addresses or that they're not correct, there may be other factors that have caused this result. But, so I think it's worth a deeper
Yeah.
dive.
We look forward to your analysis of the
Okay.
data.
Yep. Okay, any other questions on this?
No.
Okay, locality statistics, this is another way of tracking what's going up and down across a precinct during this past month of December. So last month of this year, you can see we have on the right-hand side a net change per each precinct. And we have an ending total and a beginning total. And each of the columns here tells you the reason for an uptick or a downtick on that particular category. So I don't know if there's anything too surprising here. I don't know why. So one thing that may be surprising to me is it seems like we have a negative tick on Liberty. Oh, month of December. So this is actually after all of our activity in November. So that may be why we have a bit of a downtick there.
Okay.
Right, so apparently 101, the way to celebrate after the election was to register to vote.
Right, there are very few that are plus.
Yeah.
St. Thomas More.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, moving on. This is the statistical registration report that is from various sources. So this tells you a list of all the different places and ways that we get election day registrations. We see, a bump on election day STRs down in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, fifth row down. You can see that's what it looked like in November, 29 and 19. And the other huge one every month is DMV. That was actually very high in November, a little lower in December. Back to maybe more normal numbers. In person was actually quite high in October. That's relatively high. Can I see any other statistical important facts here? I think not. I think that just gives you an idea of where some of our registrations are coming from. Questions on this one?
No, but it's interesting that there would be almost 3,000 from DMV in November. What are people doing? Do they get new cars for Thanksgiving or?
That's a great question, right?
It may be kids who get to be 18.
Yeah, it's an interesting uptick there, isn't it?
And
Or people who moved in.
Wait, so you're saying they went there to register to vote?
When they signed up for their license, they also registered.
Right, the student came in,
16, yeah, that's right, that's right.
but they may move their license in from out of state, right? So the student came in, they moved the license from out of state, they may have registered a car, so that's another possibility. Yeah, anyway, it's interesting jump there.
A lot of activity.
Okay, next slide is our budget. So this just gives you an idea. We have the registrar's portion of the budget, and then we also have electoral board's portion of the budget. This is page 1 of the registrar's portion of the budget. As always, our highest expenses is in personnel. That is running pretty much on target for about 50%, just under 50% of our budget, of its intended budget for the year. As we kind of move down the row here, let me just look at my other sheet, probably easier to see. I'm sorry, this is a little small. I just want to mention that for people who would like to look at this in a little more detail, I do post a PDF version of this report up online under the electoral board meetings. So if you wanted to look at this without kind of squinting at the screen, you could pull that PDF version of this.
And I noticed that advertising is at 118%.
Yes, that is actually only a small portion of our budget. But the reason for that is because we had to post to the newspapers for our precinct changes.
Okay.
And we actually will need to do that probably a couple more times before we get through this budget.
Yeah.
So, even though it's $111 over, so it's not a huge number, but yes, that's because
Yes,
we have.
I'm not terribly concerned about
Yeah,
$111.
but that-
I was just curious about.
Yeah, that's why, because
Because if we have to do it again,
we have to do it again.
I would just
So we will
clarify.
definitely be, probably doubling that
Yeah,
at some point.
and the office supplies had to do with, your training and all of the stuff we had to do with all of the changes at precinct polling locations.
Yes. And of course, the big number on here, or one other big number, is temporary personnel services. And that actually we didn't budget for, or we were kind of basically be borrowing budget out of the electoral board's office. Now, the finance people don't care really if we run over in one category versus another. They just want to make sure at the end of the year, everything evens out. So that negative number is actually more indicative of when we do our budget another time, we might want to reallocate some of our budget money to, among
Yeah.
a different account. Anything else on this page?
Dues and memberships, now the VIPA memberships, is that on the electoral board?
Well, yes, so there's two. So Viva membership, which is for the electoral board, comes out of your budget
Okay,
and your portion of the budget, and the other portion, the VRAD portion, is a registrar and the assistant registrars, and that'll come out of this side of the budget.
okay.
Okay, next page. So it's page 2.
Okay, and $200 that was spent on dues and memberships, was that our VIPA registration already here?
Down, your registration is going to be actually all the way down on page 3.
Yeah,
That's what he's.
55,990.
The 200.
Yes.
Yeah, it's 100%, I'm assuming that unless they change the fees and all, we should be all right.
Yeah, you're paid for the year at this point. I
Okay.
got them to give me an invoice and I haven't paid that invoice, so
Yeah,
that's clear for the year.
yeah, I'd seen those emails, so I was just making sure that that had come to a nice little
Yeah.
conclusion.
Now, having said that, the training and conferences, will still need to do that for March, right? You have a Viva conference coming up in March, right?
Yes,
So that will still hit the budget.
Do we know when in March that is?
yes,
Um,
23rd to the 25th.
Yeah, that's
Good,
right.
I can do that. 23rd to the 25th.
Okay, was there anything on page 2 that you wanted to look at? I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to skip too far ahead here.
So, okay, so then going back to the dues and memberships, so then what is 55,990? Is that under the registrars?
Which page you on, page 2?
2, halfway down. Where it
Yes,
says, okay, dues and memberships. Okay, so it says,
That's for the registrars.
right. So nothing has been paid, it's only been budgeted? Is that what? this
that's what
says?
that means, yes, because we won't, that's not going to be due until,
Spring.
right.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so just remember, in the columns, you have the very most leftmost column is kind of what we guess that we might spend in that category. Then sometimes the city will come along and amend the budget. Usually it's upward for some reason or another. That's nice. The amended budget is in the middle column. And that's basically kind of a target of what we're spending. Now then we go over the next couple of columns of what we're spending this month, what we spent year to date. And then, at the end, you get the final column is your percentage of what you budget. Does that kind of make sense?
Yes.
Okay, any other questions on page 2? All right, page 3 finishes with the electoral board portion of the budget. And I'm trying to see if there's anything to call out here.
Did we not budget anything for subscriptions and minor equipment, tools and furniture?
Yeah, the answer is, we have, we budgeted 20,
Yeah, I see that, but it doesn't show it between the two items.
yeah, it does it?
Oh, because it's split in half, it goes bottom of page.
Yeah, previous page, that's what it was, sorry.
That's forms and
Previous page.
stationery. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, and just to make a final comment on this, two final comments. One, the way this is normally split between registrar and electoral board, if it's an election related thing, that's kind of like staffing of precincts or, paying for bail balance or things that are kind of very specific to elections. That generally comes out of the electoral board side of the budget. And if it's something to do with the office, that does include early voting or staffing, it comes out of the registrar's portion of the budget. And that's really just convention. It's nothing hard and fast about that. That's just kind of how we decide where to put it.
Okay, so is that temporary personnel services for the election officers or miscellaneous contractual services?
Yes.
Both?
Due to the election.
Right. So there's that same account in both registrar and also in electoral board. And that, when it comes to the registrar's portion of that, we pay for early voting staff. And when it comes to the, election day pay, it comes out of the
Well,
registrar.
that I understand, but at the bottom of page 2,
Yeah,
which is, I believe, electoral board, you got, was it 3,300 and 3,900? One's temporary personnel, one's miscellaneous contractual services.
miscellaneous contractual services is what we're paying our vendor. So temporary personnel our vendors for the setting up the election, the equipment that we pay for this licensing fee, we pay for
Okay.
scanners.
Personnel is the election
And
officer.
personnel is the actual election officer, that's
Okay.
correct, yes.
I'm good.
Okay? All right, one final comment then on this is that we're right now sitting at about 71% of our overall budget, which is running a little bit hot for the year. We should be back a bit, a little less than 71%, maybe 60, 50, somewhere in there percent. So we're running a little hot. So we still have one election to go in this fiscal year. So we're gonna try and see if we can squeeze that into the last, 30%. But just to be aware that's kind of what.
Why do you say 71 if it says 77?
So if you go if you go all the way down to the bottom, page 3, on the right-hand side, the very bottom rightmost number,
Yeah,
right? That's kind of like our summary number for everything, right?
right.
So expense totals, if you look at the bottom
And
line
she's
there,
looking at 77.
Yeah, it says 77, not 71.
why is my say 70?
That's very optimistic.
Oh, I don't know why.
Well, the screen says 77.
I looked at the wrong one. That's why.
Yeah,
Yes, it's 77, not 71. Sorry, you were correct.
so it's hotter than you thought.
Even hotter than I was just saying,
At
yes.
some point, we may need to go back to city council, but they've generally been good when we've given them good reasons, so,
Yeah, right.
okay.
Okay.
I'm good with the budget.
Okay. Ongoing projects, let's just make sure I didn't have anything else in between. Okay, just to update on a few things that we're working on. One is we did get the cameras into the office, so that is now, they're now there. You can see them kind of installed in front of the office, and back of the office, around the office. The goal was to put cameras all around the office, around the outside. So we could monitor that. We have one camera in the equipment room. We have a camera covering the lobby.
Who monitors those?
So it goes to a server. So the answer is it doesn't get monitored by anybody unless they go look at the server.
Okay, so it's just a video backup.
Right now, it's just a video feed that goes
And
into
how
a
long
server.
have they maintained for?
I don't know. I did find it and go look at it just to see how far. It looks like it goes back at least 30 days or more.
Right.
So, I mean, this is not something that someone's watching, monitoring.
No, but it's good to know what the length of time that we can go
Yeah.
back and look at.
Yeah. I think it depends on, I don't think it's an explicit length of time. I think you have so much data storage, and then when you fill that up, it rolls over, right? So
It's hard to say.
So that's hard to say, depending, and by the way, the cameras do record only when there's motion,
Yeah.
right? So depending on how much activity there is, that may change what kind of length of time you have in the
So if
day.
you sit perfectly still,
Yeah, so if you
How
sit,
long until it stops?
I don't know, I've sat watching something on my computer screen and my motion sensing light for my office at home. It'll go off, have I sat that still that long? But anyway, that's like 5 minutes. I must have been interested in whatever I was looking at.
Or ADD didn't kick in.
Okay,
anyway, that's there, so just so you know, what it's not done yet is the counter improvements, we have that still in the grant. That has to be spent by July of 2025, which is coming up quick. I've let the, folks who are helping coordinate that know what our deadlines are, and they're supposed to be scheduling that before we get to our early voting, which will start May 2nd of 2025. So that's the timeline. They're aware of the window, and we're gonna need to push them along to make that
well, I
happen.
hope they know that they have to finish by then.
Yes,
Start.
I've put that in more than one email, but anyway, we'll need to take a few more phone calls to push that along, I think. We have the segregation of duties document, which you guys are gonna look at, so you're aware of where we stand with that. Page program is also kind of sitting queued. We're going to assign that to someone. One of our deputy registrars will pick that up. We haven't decided that yet, as we're still working on the deputy registrar, which is another item on here a little further down. Backup precinct review and approval. So we went ahead and have kicked around some scenarios for backup precincts. I think based on the guidance you gave me in a previous meeting, I'm going to do we're going to try to see if we can use existing precincts that are large enough to host a second precinct. So I'm building a matrix of what we could cover with what other precincts based on the location. So the rule is it has to be within 1 mile of the border. Turns out that just checking the distance between most of our precincts, each of our precincts is about 1.5 to 1.7 miles away from each other, which I think is actually, they're well spread out. I was thinking we had to be within a mile of the precinct polling place, but that's not the case. I think it's the border, so that actually gives us more options. So based on the fact that it's the border, we actually can build a matrix. I think that's a little more.
Yeah.
So anyway, so that's in progress, and I'll have for another meeting, I'll have a matrix that you guys can look at and decide if you like it.
Did you have a chance to check with the fire chief about the possibility?
I haven't checked with
emergency
him
situation?
yet. I did talk to them a while back, but I haven't revisited that conversation, so I actually will make myself a note to go in and do that.
Well, it would have to be an emergency situation where they pull their trucks out of the garage and let us use the garage. But, I mean, it's a thought.
Okay.
Okay. The poll book replacement renewal, you guys are going to discuss a little bit more. You're going to get another presentation today.
Right.
The precinct 301 relocation decision, I think you guys know what the possibilities are there, and we'll make a decision when you're ready to act on that. Same thing for precinct 203. 304 is still on the list because I need to get a finalization of approval from the permanent change from elect. So that's why it's still there, but we're anticipating no changes from Heritage High School. 203, I think we had just a visitation of some possible sites, and I'll let that the chairman talk about that when he's ready. And we have a deputy registrar position open, and so that has now been initiated in NeoGov. City HR is aware; they're assisting us with this. It's posted on their public HR website, and I've also marked it up on my LinkedIn page.
Do we have have you stated a deadline by which this application?
So right now, the rec is in as an open, open until filled. I think we probably will draw a line at some point and just say, okay, there's enough resumes to make a decision. It probably is, I've talked to HR, and they say, well, probably the minimum we would do would be a week. I think that's a little tight.
Yeah.
I think we should go 2, maybe 3 weeks. Let's see how many resumes come in with that 2-week period and see if we have a lot to choose from or if we are, sparse, and then we can make a decision as to how long to keep going.
And quite frankly, I think if within your minimum that you set, you get one or two really good candidates, you don't need to keep looking, but if you're not happy with anybody that you've got, let's keep it going because it's not filled yet.
Yeah, and that's why we went and did put it as, open until filled.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we're gonna just keep it open forever. So.
At what juncture are you going to notify the board as to whether you've closed the process or whether you're interviewing or whether you've decided?
Yeah, so what I would like to do is, and I did reach out to HR, the listing just went up, and I think I probably have 1 or 2 resumes at this point. Maybe more, I don't know. But my guess would be, once I get a certain number of resumes in there, I'll start the interview process, right? And then, at that point, I probably will just keep you notified along the way as to where we are. And solicit, informal feedback, and then let HR know what we decide to do.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
That is pretty much all I have. I have everyone needs to be aware that we have Martin Luther King holiday coming up. Well, that's a terrible title in there. But anyway, and then we have an open position for the deputy registrar. That's all I had to do.
Thank you. Thank you. I don't think we can motion to accept the report. Okay, shall we turn to old business? And the A item is the responsibilities of the registrar and the electoral board. The item listed on Dan's list of projects in transit. I think what we should do is set a date for a meeting of the electoral board as a closed meeting, because this is really a personnel function involving Dan and potentially deputy registrars, and set a meeting for the three of us to discuss the list that Dan has provided us, and then have a meeting with Dan, again, as a closed meeting, with the goal of having a report by our February meeting. Is there readiness to do that process as I've described and set a date for our meeting of the three of us,
Check on.
right?
I think we, I think we need to progress on that sooner rather than later, so.
Yeah,
Are you restricted some days this month though, Steve?
Uh,
Or is that next month?
it's March,
Okay.
I'm restricted on the 16th and 17th. Those are the only days I don't have available in January.
okay. Mondays are not necessarily good for me, but I can, right now, I don't have anything that I couldn't skip for the meeting.
So do you want to shoot for this coming Monday?
I said, any day, well, it'd have to be Monday afternoon. because I said any day but Monday. Monday's my bad day.
I was sort of picking up on this a little.
I don't care. You'd have a quorum. You can go right ahead and do it. Just let me know how
I
you
need
do.
you there.
Well, it can't be Monday.
Well, suggest a
Wait,
day.
not afternoon?
We,
Is afternoon best for you, Betty?
I clearly have no life, so actually I'm the most flexible of all of us. Let's look at it that way.
if you wanted to do it sometime in the afternoon of Monday the 13th, I can make it. Good. What time would you like and where would you like?
Yeah. What time would you like? And maybe 3 o'clock to give us a couple of hours?
Okay. So that's on Monday,
And
January 13th at 3 p.m.
location, shall we use the meeting room downstairs at the office?
You can, if you would like.
I would invite you to my house, but that's over the other side of town.
3 p.m.
We can do it at the conference room.
Okay, let's set that on the, Dan, could you put that on the calendar?
Yes, January 13th, 3 p.m., right? That's what I heard.
Good, and then we'll decide then about the next meeting,
We're calling it 3 to 5.
3 to 5.
Okay.
Okay,
I was saying, we're just having one day, say, including custom. I get 1 week, 1 hour, 1 minute, but no.
yeah, I'm not going to,
Give me the day.
I'm not going to play software
Yeah.
right now. Okay, let's move on to relocation of polling places. Okay, there are essentially 2 polling places in play right now, 301 and 203. 301 being the public library, and for 3, and 203 being Jubilee. Let's talk 301 first of all. We have identified West Lynchburg Baptist Church as a potential location. I do confess some love of the library still as a location. I do have to say, I'm not feeling the urgency to move from the library. I didn't have any conversations with Jeff Eggleston, who was one who was conversed with about this. Of course, Kurt is now the 3 councilmen. Maybe I can talk to her about what we really feel strongly. My goal here is to have us to do a formal approval by our February meeting for both precinct changes. Okay,
You ready to approve this?
be ready to approve, okay?
I just have this thing about thinking that the polling place should be within the precinct. It's-
Well, I'll tell you what's happening. We have Bass, which is not exactly in the precinct.
But you can't get to it.
But you can't get to it from 203.
Yeah,
And one of the choices for 203, the replacement, we have, when we go to that, we have really, as I've found so far, and I don't think there are any other candidates, we have Greater Brookville Baptist Church, which is at the corner of Florida Avenue and what is it, Winston Ridge Road, Winston Ridge Road.
it would be waiting.
Yeah, Winston Ridge Road. And it's a very prominent location, and it's a well-known church. I've had a delightful time communicating with Pat Price, who was formerly of University of Lynchburg, now Virginia University in Lynchburg. And the church is actually very receptive to having a polling place there. The problem with it is that the location is just below grade. And there is a ramp entrance into it that is about 12 feet long. 12,
Yeah, it's maybe 12 or 15 feet.
15 feet, which is, its slope is ADA compliant, but it has no resting place in that 12 to 15 feet. And it is a side ramp like a hurricane shelter coming into this
Lower level, yeah.
lower level room that's an excellent room for a polling place with kitchen facilities and bathroom facilities and a very actively used room for the church. And it's presentable and it's a reasonable location. I didn't take pictures. I'd like to give you all pictures, but it has that one defect. It has good parking. It has good handicap parking, but it has really that one entrance. There's another entrance downstairs to get to it from the parking area.
Is the parking area entirely at the top of the ramp, or is there a parking area that persons who are ADA would apply to can get to where they can go in the door? Or is it that ramp or nothing because everything else is stairs?
Everything else is stairs.
Okay, so they would have to use that ramp.
Yeah.
And under the ADA rules, does there have to be a resting area at some point in 12 to 15 feet?
In the form that you fill out for the certification, there is one requirement where it says for every drop of 30 inches, you need to have a platform area of 60 inches, in length. We did measure the rise over run, well, not just the angle, but also the length and the drop, and it was 36 inches, I think.
Yeah.
So
32 to 76
yeah,
inches.
it was
Over the whole
just
run.
over the whole run. So the drop was just a little tiny bit above what they suggest needing a platform.
Have you talked with people at the church about that one particular ADA thing?
I mean, I'm not sure what they would do about it. They would have to alter that ramp.
They built this ramp, about 4 years ago?
Yeah, and it seemed like it was designed
It
to
was
meet ADA.
ADA compliant. It was an ADA compliant requirement that.
Was ADA, if it was ADA compliant when it was built, can it not be grandfathered in?
I think that's what we are feeling.
Yeah, so I think what we discussed is, look, we could make that commentary in our form, and hopefully that's, okay.
I would pursue that one thing, because I'd hate for them to have to extend that ramp by 5 feet just so we can,
Yeah, I think it'd be doubtful they would do that.
Yeah.
yeah.
So the second candidate, I've explored.
So you did quickly switch from 301 to 203.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you're not gonna see.
Well, not for that.
But because of the second location in 203 is similar to Bass in a sense. It is at 2121 Florida Avenue, which is a strip shopping center there at the end of Florida Avenue, just as it enters Campbell Avenue. And it's an obscure
Blue
shopping.
line is there.
Right.
Right, exactly. But it's very obscure. You can pass it very easily if you
The
don't
shopping
know.
center or just the
shopping center,
particular?
the
Oh,
shopping center.
Oh,
The food line?
Right.
On Florida Avenue, right down there close to Campbell Avenue?
in the
I find it obscure.
parole,
I can see
It's
it.
the only,
parole office is there.
it's the only grocery store in the area, so everybody knows
So
it.
it's a quiz.
And in that sense, it's a well-known location. The Department of Corrections also has a probation officer in the same shopping center. And in the shopping center, about a good way down, is Faith City Church has a
It's a storefront church.
an adjunct church. They have 4 or 5 campuses.
Yeah.
And they conduct Sunday morning services at 9 a.m. They have a Spanish church that has a church there at 4 p.m. And then they have another Wednesday meeting. But it's really raw space. It's not terribly attractive. The bathrooms are basic. There's a very basic kitchen.
Well, I can tell you one problem that I've got with it right now. It's one of several campuses for that church. People are going to go to the wrong campus.
Well, we'll give them the address.
That doesn't matter. Some people will go to the wrong campus
I
until they
hear
get
you.
straightened out.
I hear you. But it's one level, it's street level, parking lot level.
Yeah.
As you know, the streets above the shopping center. And it has good parking, good handicap situation. And it is not in 203.
It's not.
Because
It's across the street from 203, because the line goes down Florida Avenue at that point.
So that, wow, but it's
Yeah,
not.
it's right across the street from the end of 203, and it's at the very end of 203, whereas
Yeah.
Jubilee was in the middle, Greater Brookville is somewhat in the middle. It's really prominently, Greater Brookville is very prominent in being in its location. So that's a real choice for us.
Is Greater Brookville, is that one on,
Baptist Church, that's the corner of Florida Avenue.
but it is on Florida Avenue.
It's on the correct side.
Yeah.
It is on the right side.
Well, Florida, most of Florida Avenue is within the precinct.
Well, but I
It's
mean,
just-
the
it's-
previous one you
it's
mentioned,
just-
Brookville Baptist.
Yes, Brookville Vets is definitely in the precinct. But it's just that end
Yeah.
from where Rush
Right.
Homes built a development down there. And just beyond where they built the development, the shopping center is in the Fairview Heights precinct, not the
Yeah.
Jubilee precinct, the Bass precinct.
I'm just thinking that the Florida Avenue location makes it much easier to find than sticking it back. You know, like St. Thomas More is back off a main road, so people have to hunt.
Right, well, both of these locations are prominent, are located right on.
Right, I was just clarifying.
And that's really simple. So is Jubilee.
Yeah,
There is another church, Central Baptist Church, which is a church that I think replaced a church that burned down in another location. That is, I've reached out to the minister, but he's never responded to me. So I'm not sure they're interested in, from the pictures of the church on Facebook. It doesn't really have very good inside space that seemed to lend itself to a voting place. So I haven't really pursued it. The Greater Brookville was recommended by several people, including Brenda Farmer, who's one of our election officers. And I reached out to Veronica Brett, who had some experience with the Faith City location, which was impressed with that. And I've reached out to the last chief and deputy who have given their comments as well. I throw those out. Is there any kind of reaction? And this is we're talking 301 as well now. And the issue of being within the precinct versus outside the precinct.
well, Brookville High School is over near me, which is other end of town from Greater Brookville. That's why I keep troubling Brookville Baptist Church. But that is sounding like probably the prime option of the three that you have mentioned. I'm just curious, are there any other I's and T's we need to dot and cross before we make a decision as to how we want to proceed?
We'll need to run our polling place agreement, but they seem enthused about the possibility of doing it.
Okay.
If you haven't driven by the two locations, if you have a few minutes, it wouldn't hurt to just drive by and take a look at them.
Right.
Just to get your sense of what it would look like for voters.
If I can input on that one. The Greater Brookville Baptist, is that the one that is on Florida Avenue and Winston Ridge?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, I would suggest that one. Not the one that is in White Rock. The only reason I would say to suggest the Greater Brookville one is because it is right up under a street light. I would not want our election officers there by themselves at night or going in the morning, due to some obscure reasons of, I know police goes down through there. It's really a bad neighborhood from, if you keep straight. The flow does come back up towards Florida Avenue. So I would suggest, if we do get to have this church, if we can make sure that the police do patrol when we have, our officer of elections going in and leaving. So that way we do have some type of protection for them in that area.
You're talking about great.
Yes.
Okay.
Thing that's on Florida Avenue going towards just keeping straight, you would want to have some type of protection for our officers. And this is from personal knowledge.
Okay, there. Yeah, okay. It was interesting when Dan and I were there today, we got there early.
It's great during the day.
Yeah. But I was going to say, Nancy, that one of the deacons of the church immediately drove into the parking lot to ask who we were and why we were there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were on top of it.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'll talk to Nancy about that further. But those are our choices. I think I lean, Doc, the same way you do, in terms of that. Now, what about West Lynchburg Baptist? Shall I talk to Kurt and see his reaction and see how he feels?
I would go ahead and talk to Kurt. Kurt actually asked me about it wanted to know if we were going to talk about it today. And I think he's kind of leaning towards West Lynchburg.
Okay,
But you talked to, I mean, it's your precinct, you talked to him. I just know that in our brief discussions, he seemed to be leaning that way.
certainly, I'm sure we can talk about it. Good. Okay. Then anyway, that's where we are on the polling places.
Okay.
Okay, we're very close.
Just, if you're gonna run by either of those places before our next meeting, let me know. I'd like to go see them as well.
Okay,
When you go.
I can set it up too.
I mean, you don't have to make a special trip for me, but if you're gonna go, let me know.
I feel probably a need to go back to West Lynchburg.
Okay.
Baptist.
I could almost walk there from my
I'll
house.
see you. Okay, enough on that item. Shall we move on to emergency polling locations? Dan, anything more to be said?
So like I said, my plan would be to, since I've gone back to revisit the question of having an individual backup location for each location, to more of a matrix model. I kind of begun that model. I don't have it finalized into a nice picture for you, but I will prepare that document. You can have a look at that probably for next meeting. Good.
The idea of using existing polling places as backup for other polling places.
Right.
We actually asked that question at Heritage High School,
Yeah.
and I believe we could have 2 precincts working there if we needed to.
Right.
I think Heritage Methodist, for general election, it might be tight. For primary, you could probably get away with it, just split it between the 2 fellowship hall, the 2 hazard fellowship hall, but you'd have to be very careful to make sure they get the right one. St. Thomas More also spreads out a lot. That's a potential. I mean, it's a possibility that you could do 2 there, but you'd have to figure out a way to divide the 2 rooms.
That's easy.
But I mean, they would come in from the same hallway. They've got different doors, but there are 2 exit doors, 2 different places. So that's also a possibility. You couldn't do it at Sheffield, Sandusky, maybe, but that could be tricky as well, just because of how the doors are set.
I think Payne and Bass lend themselves to having an emergency precinct.
Yeah, I don't think Perrymount could do that. There's not enough space in there for.
There's a good amount of space, but there are a lot of people in the precinct.
Yeah. And Sandusky, you could also, in a pinch, you could probably go back and use that back gym since you would be moving somebody.
Exactly.
You know, we'd have to put signage that said, this is for this precinct, you know, the other precinct goes. So those are just options for Dan to put in the.
Yeah, I mean, the first criteria is, does it fit the regulation, which means is it within 1 mile? So that's the starting point that I'm looking at, is what's possible from that perspective. And then the second stage would be to go and actually look at physical locations again and see, or think about, physical locations, see what's possible.
304, 305, and 401 are all within a mile of the limits of precincts.
Right. The other factor I'm putting into the matrix is whether or not they're on the same AEP circuit, right? Because that's one of the things that we've talked about all along, which is having a backup location on the same AEP circuit. If we can avoid that, that'd be good, because one of the possible emergencies would be AEP losing a particular circuit. So so we'll see if we can get differentiation on that.
And some of these bigger facilities have whole house generators.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, let's move on to item D, on old business, replacement of aging electronic poll books. Do we need to discuss that right now?
I mean, my feeling would be you want to have a look at the demo that we have coming up here and let them discuss what their offering is. And then put this on the old business of our next meeting to
Yeah.
discuss the various offerings that we've taken a look at.
Well,
I agree.
I think replacement of electronic poll books is redundant with poll book demos. So I'd say go ahead and do the poll book demos since they've been so patient waiting for us to get to this point.
Yeah, Dan, I think you've given us the background on the vacant, under new business, the vacant deputy position. And we do need to re-adopt the review policy, the policy for remote participation.
To do that once every year.
Yeah, so shall we go ahead and do that right now and move into the demo?
Yeah, I have no questions about it. We did it so recently that I'm fine with what we did. And I'm good. I would move that we do our annual adoption of the electronic participation policy.
As stated,
What did you say, renew?
renew it. Yeah, I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Those on for it's passed.
Okay, unanimously.
Shall we now move on to item C under 9, new business, the demo?
Yes, let's do that.
Yep, okay, so Jennifer, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. And I'm going to, let me go over and kill this because I think I need to try and get you on the bigger screen. But first of all, you're going to have to take control. So you're with me, right?
Yes, I am. So if I go to share screen, it says host disabled participant screen sharing.
Yeah, so I think I have to turn that on for you. I got to find where that is.
Okay.
Let's see. I know I've done this before, so I know it's possible. Give me a second here to figure out where to do that.
Yeah, no problem.
I think if I make you the host,
It's something.
I'm going to let you do that, and I think you'll be able to share this.
Yeah, I think if you designate her as host.
Okay.
Okay. Now you are, looks like you should be host.
Right. Let's see here. Yes, I will be able to share. Let me get this up here.
Is this Zoom or WebEx?
We're on Zoom right now, so let me see what shows up on my screen here, then I'm gonna try and put it up on the main screen. I know we've done this before somehow, so.
Okay, let me see here.
We need content.
Apparently got my water bottle coming.
All right, let's see. Hang on just a second. Let me get, all right, can you now see my PowerPoint?
I can see a PowerPoint. Now let me see if I can get it to the big screen here. Worst case scenario, I can move this whole thing over, I think. Let me just make that bigger. Okay, you guys see it okay? Okay, yeah, so go ahead, we have you on the big screen now, so you can go ahead and walk your way through the demo.
Okay, that sounds good. And before I really kick things off with the demo, I'll let Tyler kind of do some introductions.
Thank you. Again, I'm Tyler Links. I'm the Senior Account Manager for Printelect. Jennifer is my teammate. She is our lead poll book and ballot on demand specialist. We also have joining us Chris Andrews, who's the Vice President of Sales for Printelect. Printelect is a kind of a locally based company. We represent for election systems and software, also known as ES&S. ES&S is the largest elections technology provider in the United States. We have a very close partnership with them. And the Express Poll, the electronic poll book, is one of the products, the ES&S products that we represent. We have an extensive customer and partner base throughout Virginia, North Carolina, and South Carolina. In Virginia, as y'all may recall, Printelect provides the third-party absentee mailing for the city of Lynchburg. We very much appreciate your partnership with that. And the poll book that we're going to be showing you here today is used in a few localities that are somewhat proximate to you. So it's not like you'd, not have peers nearby who could be of assistance. Appomattox County, Prince Edward County, the city of Buena Vista, and Patrick County are all users of the ES&S electronic poll book. You and most of the localities that are contiguous with the city of Lynchburg are currently using the Demtech system, but many localities like yourself are considering options at this point. So we appreciate the opportunity to give you this presentation. We're sorry that the inclement weather has kind of impinged on our ability to come and see you in person, but I welcome the opportunity to bring the products to you for your review in person, look, feel, touch, all of that. So we'll certainly keep available the option to do that here soon. I myself am located in Western Henrico, so not tricky, I think, for me to get out to see you at a time when the roads aren't iced over or will be soon. So with that, unless y'all have any questions about Printelect and ES&S, I will hand the presentation over to Jennifer.
Okay, if there are, oh, sorry, go ahead.
That's good. Sounds good. Thank you.
All right, so with that, we will get started. And this is just a very brief PowerPoint presentation when something like this does happen and Tyler and I cannot be on site with the actual hardware. So please feel free to jump in, ask any questions about the hardware that you see. And as Tyler expressed, hopefully he can be on site at some point in time if you wanted to feel, touch, and see it in person. Just a little background from me. I am from Western North Carolina. I am about to give a little perspective. I am about an hour from Bristol, Virginia, so I can cross the mountain and be on 81 fairly quickly. And I was actually in Lynchburg just before Christmas doing a install in Appomattox. So I really enjoyed the town there. All right, so we will just jump right in. So just I just put together a brief agenda. We'll just go over the hardware first. We'll actually go over the Express Poll application or the user interface for the poll workers. We will then just briefly go through Connect. That is our host-based system for the jurisdiction to do any reports and just get everything cumulative and gather the information. That's what has happened during the election. And then if you want to, we can jump into some administrative tasks on the poll book, such as, loading the election and things such as that. So here is our Express Poll. This is a Microsoft Surface Go tablet, and the product moving forward is going to be a Surface Go 4. As you can see here, we have a custom built stand that encases the tablet. And this serves for two purposes. It serves for obviously protection, but it also does give us the ability here, you see in number 3, to have 2 different wired connections for any peripherals. And these are things such as a BOD, ballot on demand printer, or a receipt printer, if that's something that the jurisdiction would decide to go with. Also here with number 1, we can see that this is where the magnetic power supply would plug in. And it is magnetic and it does do a really nice connection, but in case the Express Poll's picked up or knocked over, it kind of dislodges pretty easily too, so not to damage anything on the tablet. And we do have, it's designed to be a flip stand. So basically it would just compact flat, and the poll workers would simply flip the stand out and engage the barn doors. And this is your entire pool book encased in the white stand with the one tablet.
Touch screen?
Yes, it is a touchscreen. And you can use, your fingers, or you can use a stylus, either one. All right, so just to kind of go over the back doors, or the back part of it, as you see number 4, again, this just gives you a little bit better view of the kickstand and how it operates. The number 5 here at the top, that's simply the power buttons, when they power the device on. And number 6, as with most tablets and phones, it does have a rear-facing camera, and this can be used to scan driver's license and the barcodes on the driver's license, which comes in very handy. All right, are there any, it's a very simple design. There's actually 2 express poles that come in one case, and the entire package just weighs around 5 pounds.
When we generally use 2 or 3 poll books in each precinct, how do they share information between the 2 poll books?
All right, so you just got to the next slide. So what we have, we refer to this as a small TP-Link router. This gives off a local area connection signal, not a wide area connection. It's just local, and it's just programmed to the poll books. This is something that's done during installation, and the network for the connectivity can be hidden so that it does not broadcast. So, and this is something also that has to stay in close proximity to the poll books. We usually like to have it within 20 to 30 feet of the poll books, so that for security and for the best connectivity for the poll books.
Is it Wi-Fi based or Bluetooth based, or neither?
It is Wi-Fi based. And you will see, just going back to the configuration of the flip stand, the reason we did build the case to include 2 USB components is so that you could have multiple peripherals like a BOD printer and a receipt printer, because ES&S, just for security purposes, does not allow any type of Bluetooth connectivity.
Okay, understood.
Yep, everything's hardwired as far as the printers.
Yeah, that's a specific choice that ES&S made in designing this product. I know that's a contrast to our leading competitor's product, but we, ES&S, made a very strong decision to stay away from any kind of Bluetooth functionality with our poll book solution. And as regards this router, I know that y'all are coming off of the Demtech solution with its, the Merlin router that you use, which I'm advised involves some complexity that goes into it, both in getting it set up and in the operation. I look forward to the opportunity to bring you some of the hardware and let y'all, kind of see it and touch it, because this router only requires the one connection that you see, and then it just plugs in for power, and that's it. It sends out its signal. The poll books are programmed to detect that network, and that's all that's involved in the setup. It is very, very easy from an end user perspective.
What kind of encryption do you have on these units?
It is, it's the WPA2 encryption, and then which is standard. And then we have, like I said, the capability of hiding the network, and during implementation, specifically connecting to the smaller routers. And, obviously you couldn't scan to see the network with your phone or any other device, and that would only be secured for the express polls. And they are password protected, obviously.
Data on the poll books is also encrypted through an encryption regimen created by ES&S.
So everything is encrypted more than one time for a security's sake?
That's correct.
Okay.
All right, so just moving forward to, and this is just going to be brief because I know these aren't listed in the quote, but if something, in the future, this is the thermal receipt printer that we offer. That is configurable to what the jurisdiction just wants to display on that receipt. Obviously, some jurisdictions currently use it and some don't. So that's just up to the jurisdiction and how they want their polling places configured. And then this is, oh, sorry.
Let me go back to your thermal printer. When you say we can configure it for a primary, if we were having a dual primary, you could come out and say either Democrat ballot or Republican ballot, and they could take it to the ballot table to get the correct ballot?
Yes, that is correct. So during the workflow, you would have one tablet, and a process during the workflow for a dual primary, one of the screens would ask, what ballot would you like to issue? And based on that selection would then display on the receipt that was printed.
And I'm getting ready to sneeze, so excuse me if I stop my question. Can we adjust the print, the type size, so that it's obvious which ballot they're supposed to get?
Yes, font size and data that appear on the receipt is definitely configurable. And we have different jurisdictions that even use the current Dymo printer that Veris uses. I think it's a Dymo 450. So those are used with the poll book, and just font size, anything that you would want to move or display more prominently, that can definitely be done.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, and the last one that we have is just, this is our ballot on demand printer that we offer. It's a Brother 6400. And again, just like the thermal receipt printers, we have some jurisdictions that use this and some don't. That's just based on the preference of the jurisdiction.
Quick question, Dan, you had asked that I provide a copy of the quote that did not include the BOD printers, though I'd given you an earlier version that did. So and since it's all line item pricing, it all scales linearly. Put an item in or take it out, and you'll see what effect that will have on the quote.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, that was one of my questions is, if we take the quote you gave us and just say, well, okay, we do an a la carte menu and say we want this, this, and this. Obviously, certain things have to go together, but if we wanted to say receipt printer in or receipt printer out or ballot on demand printer in or out, we could just, in terms of our analysis, just look at that by just saying, put that in or take that out.
Yeah, you can strike those items as you need, or if there's a specific way that you need to see the quote reconfigured to have a clean copy, I can certainly do that for you as well. So
yeah,
let me know.
Yeah, we'll get to that point at some point, I think.
That's fine. No, that's fine.
As long as we have everything in the list, then we can, a la carte it a bit.
Absolutely. Yeah, and check, could be some other things further down. An example with the BOD printer, for instance. There's like one of the training days that is identified there. There's like 5 training days in there. One of those is for the BOD. Obviously, you can reduce the number of training days from 5 to 4. That's only a suggestion in terms of the number of days. We'd work out what the training plan is as part of finalizing a purchase contract. Another thing would be like for the receipt printers. You have the receipt printers, then it's a case for the receipt printers. All that can get taken off. There'd be some adjustment to the shipping cost as a result of some of these things being taken off. Again, I can get you more information about that. Do y'all currently use a ballot on demand solution?
No, we do not.
Now, what is the use that the jurisdictions, especially in Virginia, that have ballot on demand, are putting these GOG printers too? Are they using them as spot kind of ballots? Are they using it as all their ballots or what?
It's usually used for early voting. Voters that show up in person can get checked in on the poll book. And then as part of checking the voter in, a print job can be sent over to the ballot printer to print the ballot for that voter's specific precinct. And that process is a one-click operation that's initiated by the voter being checked in. It's so therefore, in an early voting site, you wouldn't need to have 18, different precinct ballots sitting around in file folders, let's say. It can be produced on demand for any voter that, comes in. That's the most common use. There's one or two localities that also utilize this printer not as a primary method of providing pre-printed ballots for election day use, but it can be a bit of a fallback option, like on election day, and you feel like, oh my gosh, we're running short on ballots. We need to produce, more ballots for precinct 305. You can. There's another feature that can be configured that can allow it to print ballots not assigned to a specific voter or not, working through the poll book, but to print ballots in relatively small batches, 50 at a time, 100 at a time, that kind of thing. It's not meant to be used at high volume, but it can be used for small volume kind of ad hoc emergency supplement to pre-printed ballots.
What's the speed of that printer?
The speed of the printer, it can print around 20, depending obviously on the content of the ballot and the length of the ballot. It can print anywhere from 22 to 20. Well, let me hang on just a second. Let me try and think. I think it can print anywhere from 22 to 28 in about 3 to 5 minutes. Again, it depends on the content of the ballot and it will depend on the length of the ballot. Obviously, it takes a little bit more time to process a 14-inch than it does an 11-inch.
Okay.
So it's about one every 10 or 12 seconds.
That sounds about right.
It is, yeah, just because these are certified for ballot printing, the settings are very specific. They do go through the fuser just a little bit slower, but it's in order to set that ink in order for the tabulation system, to really get a clean read and get a clean, crisp ballot like you have your flat pre-printed ballots.
And do these use paper that we can only get from the vendor?
That's generally recommended,
Um,
yes.
mhm.
There's a specific paper that ES&S tabulation uses. As regards your unison system, that paper, I know that we are familiar with it and can source it because we print, ballots in order to be a part of the mailed absentee ballot packets that we, print and assemble for you. So I think the short answer to that question is, whatever the specifications are for ballot paper for, Lynchburg's tabulation system, yes, we can source that paper.
Tyler, I can confirm that as well.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just thinking in terms of if, I don't know how much we would need, but let's say we buy a case too much, we can always save that for the next election because we're going to be using the exact same paper regardless.
Yes. Absolutely. And that's why some of the jurisdictions do like, this alternative because, you do purchase it and anything you do have left over, it does, you are able to use it for the following elections.
Okay. Moving on.
All right. So that really concludes, like I said, very short PowerPoint presentation. And with that, I will jump into the interface of the Express poll. So
What Jennifer's going to be
once
starting
you,
with is interfaces that the poll workers will be seeing and end users will be seeing. We're going to get to kind of more behind the scenes interfaces relating to the server system next, but this is kind of like user interface on the tablet itself.
yes, so once the poll worker use the orange button, the large orange button on the top left, this is we refer to this as obviously the launch screen. This is what would come up. You have a few things here on the launch screen that's very useful. Obviously, you would want to see the most recent election appear here. And you have information over here. This is your database version. This is when you would initially send the information to ES&S and they would configure the election for you. And then if you had any type of reconfiguration that needed to be done, during the process of LNA and going through and checking all the information, if a rework needed to be configured, then this would you would know that from the configuration version. And then the syncing process would be something more during early voting. And that would give you the information as to the last time that the poll book got the latest data from the host, which is our Connect system that we will go over next. And it also does keep up with your local transactions that happen on each individual poll book. And then when the poll books are brought back after election day, it also verifies to you how many were sent to our server or Connect system. So that just gives you a small snapshot of what is going on with the poll book without really having to log in and doing a deep dive. All right, so from here, the poll workers would simply hit launch. This will prompt a PQC code. This is a poll book qualification code. This is required. This is something also that you would set for every election. And you can definitely, most of our jurisdictions elect to change that password and that be election specific. So once the poll book does come up, they would verify their polling place here. If something did happen and a poll book was deployed to the wrong jurisdiction, if they got to this point and, they would call in and say, oh my goodness, the polling place is incorrect. You do have the option to change the polling place, but you will notice it's not extremely simple. So if the poll worker clicked on it, a supervisor password would be required in order to do that. But that is something that is possible to do.
Every poll book is loaded with the entire election database for the entire jurisdiction. So, all of the data, all the registered voters for the entire city are loaded onto every poll book. What you're seeing here with this initial login is, again, a configurable interface that is set up specific to, I want to assign these poll books in the first instance to this particular precinct. But they can be repurposed again through the use of the supervisor password as needed.
So I will go ahead and log in with my credentials. And again, this is also something that can be managed through our host Connect system. You can elect to have one username and password per precinct, or you can even be as granular as you want to and drill down and have each worker have their own individual login. That's completely up to the jurisdiction. So once you sign in,
Let me ask you a quick question about that. Sometimes at the last minute, we will move a poll worker from one polling place to a different polling place. Can these be individual specific, or do we just have to have kind of a generic election officer number 12 and just assign that on election day?
yes, you can do that. You can do it either way. You can just have, election officer 1 through 20. You can have individuals and then set up maybe election officer 1 through 20 in emergency purposes, if you would want to do it that way as well.
So what I'm hearing is we can have individual names for usernames have a specific password, but if we move people around, instead of using their name, they use election officer 2.
Right, yep. And you would just want to, obviously keep an internal record of who election officer 2 would be. But yes, you could set it up either way.
Thank you.
Yep. And it also works if you have an individual that is set up to use a poll book. If they do need to move precincts, they have the ability to log into either poll book. So it's
Okay.
so they could move polling places without and still use their same login credentials. The poll book and the Connect system is going to keep a log, and it will know obviously what individuals and what usernames log in to specific tablets based on their serial number.
Thank you.
All right, so the first thing that your poll workers will see is just really an overview of the information in the precinct. They are going to have, again, the polling place here. They'll have the serial number of the poll book, and they'll have the opening time and close time. In the center, they would have an overview of the ballots. Obviously, first thing in the morning, all this would be 0. But it would keep up through the day how many paper ballots were issued. This does give you the option to handle provisional voters through the express polls. Some jurisdictions do, some don't. If you opt for provisional not to be handled through the poll book, the only thing you're going to see here would be how many paper ballots were issued. And then over to the right, it's going to have just an overall snapshot of the voters in your precinct. It will have the number of registered voters in the polling place. It will then keep up with how many voters you've checked in. It will also keep up with and just give a snapshot of how many absentee ballots in that precinct were returned during the absentee period. And it will also give you a number of how many people in the precinct had cast a ballot early during the early voting period. And you do just have a few reports here. What some jurisdictions do at the very beginning of the day, just to kind of do a 0 report, if you have the thermal printers, all of these would be 0, and you would have the ability to print this, and that would just basically give them a really quick 0 total report. And this is also something that you can do just kind of a snapshot during the day to see what you have issued. Through the day, it will also keep up with the voted list. I'll click on that. So it will start numbering your voters chronologically as to when they checked in. Obviously, if you do have multiple poll books, you would have the ability to look at the poll books just on the specific device or over all devices, or you can actually look at the different poll books that are in your network, and it will narrow them down to what transactions were done locally on each machine, if that's something that you would like to do. During early voting, it will have the ability, if you want to filter the list by precinct. Obviously, date and time. In a dual primary, you would have the ability to sort the information by what party was chosen. Voter verification, if you wanted to see anyone, or if you needed a report of who required assistance or who voted outside of the polls or a curbside or challenge ballot, you would have the ability to filter that.
Some of these terminologies, Jennifer, a question. Is that configurable? Can we call, is there end user control over some of these categories?
Yes, there is. And that can be done in Connect, which we'll show in just a little bit. And you do, if you don't have the option as the For the Epson printer, you do have the ability to export any of these voted lists, filtered how you want it. You can export those to a USB, and that comes in a CSV format.
Now, where it says 14 voters in the gray bar,
Yes, I'll go back.
the screen you were at.
Yeah.
So you're not on
Yeah,
that
it's
screen.
coming, yeah.
Okay, okay, this is the vote, this is a report, this is not the actual poll book the election officers will
Correct.
see.
It's just a report.
That,
Okay,
She's
never
already
mind,
got it in there.
never mind, I'll wait till I get to the other screen.
okay, sounds good. All right, so the reissued and spoiled ballot, that is something that if you want to handle reissues through the poll book, that's an option. You can have that feature turned on or off. Again, some jurisdictions do, some don't. Reissuing a ballot example would be if someone come and they had messed up on their ballot and you needed to spoil it and issue them another one. If that's something that you wanted to track through the poll book, then you definitely have the ability to do that. And if you do issue it and for reason the ballot being spoiled, it will track that for you. And then the voter list is simply a list of the voters for this precinct. But really from this point, you can see really the only option for the worker to do currently would be to open the polls. And this is your open poll screen, or you're actually the home screen that we refer to. So this is the screen that the poll workers are really going to be familiar with the majority of the day. This is where it's going to sit until a voter presents themselves. And you can see down here, it does keep up with the number of voters checked in versus your number of registered voters. And it does keep it with the number of ballots that you've issued and reissued and checked in. And again, this display all depends on what options you choose and don't choose as far as your configuration. So for the poll workers, the first thing that they would do when someone presents would just be search for voter. And once you search, you can see once you just start typing, it will start populating results. And we do always tell them, obviously, less is more. You will see by default, it will only search for the voters by precinct. And before we go any further, I will just let you know, ES&S went with the color scheme as basically a stoplight. So you can see if the voter is green, that means everything's good, they're active, they're eligible, and you know, there's nothing that you really have to check before moving forward. For yellow, just like a stoplight, means you just kind of got to slow down just a little bit. For example, this person is inactive and there's just a few more steps that you may need to complete before the voter's actually able to continue in the process. And let's see if I can find. I may need to look at my voted list. But yeah, and you can see the more you type as well, the more it will narrow down the field for your selections. So the more you continue to type, the more it will narrow down your selections. You also from here have the ability, for any reason, you can search by address if need be. And then if you can't, oh, go ahead.
The first screen where you hit the button to scan for the voter, to search for the voter, it also has an option for barcode.
Yes.
You just have them give the poll worker their driver's license, And it
Yes,
would-
absolutely. When you hit scan barcode, it activates that camera on the back of the express pole. And you just simply place the barcode behind it and it will automatically populate the voter's name.
This simulator doesn't do that, obviously, right?
Right, because it's gonna want to use my camera on my laptop and all you're gonna get is a picture of me if I hit scan barcode.
I can
But
show
yes,
you all that feature
it does.
at some point. in
Once you
person.
hit
Yep.
Yeah, once you do hit scan barcode, it automatically goes to this screen with the voter's name populated. And the only voter that would be eligible to pick would be the one that it scanned.
And if they get a red light there in the right-hand column, that's for somebody who we have a record of having already received a ballot from them or some other thing.
That is correct. And let me show you that right quick. I'm going to go to the voted report. We'll bring up Tori Rawson. And you can see there.
Yeah.
Yep, and you can also see if you click on that, if you choose not to be able to reissue, if that's something that you don't want to place on the poll book, or again, you don't want the provisional option to, handle provisionals through the poll book, there wouldn't be an option to move on beyond this screen. The buttons would be grayed out because of obviously a ballot has already been issued. So again, a lot of this is configurable just depending on what the needs and workflow of what the jurisdiction would like.
Well, normally what we do with a situation like this, for example, we have a record of somebody being sent an absentee ballot, we send them to the chief. Are you able to set this up and configure the chief's book differently than the election officer's book, so that the election officer says, oh, you need to see the chief, and the election officer isn't able to do anything about it?
Yes, so I'll go back to this and we'll find, so for Virginia, anyone that has been issued an absentee ballot and that has not returned it and has not voted it, they show up as yellow. And once they click, there is specific comments here on what needs to happen. And this is all configurable by jurisdiction. So whatever you want the comment to reflect. And then the chief is then able to change once they surrender the ballot, or I think it's sign the affidavit too. Then you're able to go through the manage voter and change them to eligible, but you'll notice that the manage voter requires the supervisor password. So that's something that the chief can do.
So
That you would
brings me
want,
to-
yep, that,
to the question. So are the permissions user-based? So to drill down on Doc's question a little more, you have a supervisor password. Is that a common supervisor password across all poll books or across the whole election? Or is each user have a different level, potentially different level permissions? So for example, some users have chief level permissions, some users have regular level permissions. Or is it, is the supervisor and chief level permission, not configurable per user?
it is currently in the certified version that is there now, it is not. That is something that's being developed for a future release.
Okay.
So currently it's not configurable by user, but that is something that we're working on for future releases.
Okay.
So would we have, and I'm just making sure I understand, we would have a password at the election officer level, a password at the chief's level, and then an administrative password so that Dan could do, the high level, get down in the weeds on some of this stuff, but the chief would have permissions to do things with that password that the election officers could not do with their password. And could each chief be assigned a password exclusive to their precinct? Did I ask too many questions?
I think the answer to
No.
that question is no. Right? I think that's, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the supervisor password is a universal supervisor password.
Right, so each chief in each precinct, the supervisor password currently is something that is set at the beginning of the election. So each chief would have currently the same supervisor password. But
Changed.
that is correct in you saying that the original officers of election would not have access to that, so they would not be able to do certain things that the chief would. And then obviously Dan would have another, supervisory level password to get into the weeds and into some of the administrative setup and everything that the workers and the chiefs would not have access to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
So from this, mhm.
No, good, go ahead, we're running short on.
No, so here, just on your first screen, we have the basic ballot info, but I'm actually gonna go back and search for an active. So again, the comment section is configurable by jurisdiction. Ballot style and precinct is also something that's configurable. However, you want to best relay information and what makes sense to your officials the best. And then underneath the different statuses, any kind of wording that you want to add in addition here is also configurable. One of the tabs that I do get a lot of questions about is voter history. Voter history in this sense, it does not give you information as far as any elections that they have previously participated in. Voter history just gives you anytime any transaction occurs with a voter, the history is recorded about what user performed the action, what time, what the previous status was, and what the status was changed to. So that's really your voter history. And your polling place is just simply the polling place that is assigned to it. So from here, we'll go ahead and just issue Jessica a standard. Again, capture voter verification. This is just something that the state, these are some of the defaults that the state wanted us to put in for certification. But you do have the ability to add or not have as many here as you need. And also the wording is configurable here as well. And you have the ability to change multiple or check multiple if need be. Or if none of these apply, then you can simply just skip the screen and hit next. And then the very last screen is pretty self-explanatory. Express vote ballot is something that we have with our ADA equipment. So obviously that wouldn't appear here. So the only option would be to issue a paper ballot and you would issue the ballot. And if you had a printer, it would go ahead and indicate the printer here, but I don't have one hooked up. So obviously it says printer not detected. So we can hit skip and it'll tell you what ballot to issue to the voter. And once you complete check-in, it will default and take you back to the home screen. And I'll show you the options in just a little bit, how you have the ability to turn printers on and off so that you don't get those error messages. And also another feature to show you if we're searching for a voter. And you don't see the name come up, you do this demo is set up by county, but this can be changed to say by city. Then you can look at the entire information on the poll book or throughout your jurisdiction. And you can now see that it will populate, but they're obviously in red because they're not eligible to vote. It does say wrong poll. So from here, you have the ability to go in and do find poll place. and you can actually give them the information of what polling place that they need to go to.
If you had the receipt printer, you could print this information out so that they could then, have that address and, could like type it into their phone for GPS purposes. You notice where it also has an option that says send text. Or if the poll books were allowed to have internet connectivity in the polls on election day, they are not in Virginia. If they were, there's actually some really fun things that can be enabled here. You could even create a map with directions. It kind of could do the GPS for them. As it is, not functionality that we use in Virginia because of restrictions on internet connectivity with poll books in the polls on election day. But with the thermal printer connected, you can at least print out the address information, tear that off, hand it to the voter and say, this is the address for your correct polling place.
Do we need one of those thermal printers for each poll book, or can you have a single thermal printer for all of the poll books that you got at a precinct?
No, everything is since Bluetooth is just something that we don't allow, and everything's hardwired, then it is basically, it is a one-to-one system. So for each poll book, you would have to have a receipt printer.
Okay.
Yep. All right, and obviously from here you have the ability to clear all, and if need be, you can search for the next voter, or if you want to go back to the home screen, then this just basically takes you back to the home screen. Are there any questions on just like the basic voter search or anything that you saw on the screens that you have questions about? It's pretty, I will tell you, I did reach out to Appomattox today. They were, this is their first use for election day and early voting, since they did have an election today. And the officers of election were very pleased with how everything was going today with their first use. They like the simplicity.
No, I think it's a special election.
Third place.
Yeah, special
Yeah,
election
place
for
for
Kent, for District 10%.
There were
Okay.
actually 3 special elections in the state.
Moving on.
All right. So this is really just under the options menu. Again, this just gives you a little bit more information about what's going on. It does tell you again the last sync date, configuration date, some of the information that it displayed to you on the home screen. It also gives you that information here. Again, the application version, database, serial number, just information about the device. Signed in user. So this would actually tell you what user had signed in and is currently on the poll book. Peer-to-peer, mine does say not connected because I do not have multiple laptops connected. But this would actually give you a list if you had, for example, 3 express polls in a polling place and you wanted to confirm that all the express polls were talking to each other and were syncing. You could go here and it would actually list the serial numbers of the other poll books that it was detecting.
Do you have to be logged in to see that?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be logged in, and there's 2 indicators that they are talking to one another. Here, this one's a little bit more granular than the other one that I will show you. This one, again, will give you the actual serial numbers of the other poll books that it's connected to. If you just want a quick high-level view, I'll go over some of these symbols. Obviously, the printer, if you have any type of peripheral printer, the printer would be green, and that would indicate to you that the printer was connected and is ready to print. The check mark would indicate to you that it would be connected to the smaller TP-Link device. on election day, they would always want to see the cloud as red because you're not allowed to have any, type of live connection during early voting. And that's what the cloud represents. So the cloud would actually be red. And then the small one to the right, the little X in parentheses currently is red. But if your poll books were syncing and talking to each other, this would have a small green check within the parentheses. And that's just a really quick indication that your poll books are syncing and talking to each other. All right, so then at the end of the night, if there's any reports or any reconciliation that they need to do, they can obviously go to view reports, and we briefly went over those. They have the option here. They can close the poll from here. That's one way to close out and close the poll. Or they also have the option here to sign out. So both of those options will actually sign you out of the poll book.
Without closing the election.
Yes, without closing the election.
We ask our election officers to log in and log out when they're working the poll book. So this is just a simple case of each one logging in, logging out, and the next one sits down and just continues and picks up and goes on from there, correct?
That's correct. Yep. So if you had like someone switch out during the day, they would basically just simply sign out, and then the next person would sit down and launch and use their credentials to log in. And I know it's kind of quick and easy, but that's what we really like about it. It's, kind of self-explanatory and, just self-leading for the workers, which is what we like to see.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, if no one has any questions, and feel free to come back, I can toggle back and forth between this too. But if you're ready to move on, I can show you.
Do you want to see the back end part of it?
The connect part.
Yeah.
I don't know that we need to do the connect part.
Yeah, so what I was gonna suggest, and just for the purpose of time, is the connect part is probably more interesting to me, although if you do want to see it, I don't want to cut that off. But if we do get.
It's the setup, essentially.
It's the setup. And if we get, maybe Tyler to come out another time to show us in person, maybe that.
Yeah, I would think my main concern is how easy is it for the officers to work with it on election day? And Dan's concern is how easy is it for Dan to get it set up for the officers for election
Which
day?
I'll have more detailed questions, which
Yeah.
I don't really want to bore them with necessarily. But they'll want me to know that I can do what they want me to do with it.
Yeah, at this point, I think the board might want to just talk through what we've heard today, and perhaps when we have better weather, we might want to have you come out, and then we would get a little more granular, as you call it, getting into more of the details. I've been really good not asking a whole bunch of questions. And I think that would be good to save that for a different day.
Well, it's exciting that they're in use in mathematics right now.
Yeah, so I actually did talk to Patricia over there. They hadn't used them yet, and today is the day they're using them, so we'll definitely talk to them and hear.
I'm definitely want to follow up.
I'm sure Nancy will be talking to her.
Some of us have ties to mathematics.
Yeah. One question I had in terms of the main user screen, but you don't have to go back to it, but the size of the font in that screen dictates how many lines you can see at one time, it seems.
Right.
And it looked to me like you could see maybe 4 or 5. Part of it was covered by the bottom, the on-screen keyboard. So one of the questions would be, are you able to see more lines in that? Can the on-screen keyboard be hidden or kind of come up automatically? And I know I have a Surface at home and I use it, and I think the keyboard can be, minimized or open. So I'm just curious if it's possible to have a more display of more names at once.
Yes, it is. And you also have the ability, once the keyboard is minimized, you have the ability to scroll. So if more names are appearing, you do have the ability to do that. I do believe on the screen, if you have a lot of names, it displays possibly 6 or 7 at a time. And then again, like I said, yeah, you can either continue to narrow it down by searching for the voter's name, or you have the ability to scroll and choose.
Right. Okay, that's fine. That's just curious.
But yeah, definitely, I think, the back end of ConnectAnd, that would definitely, that is something that is going to be very helpful to you and just any internal staff and, board members that would like to see that. And that's something that I would definitely be happy to come up, and meet with you and Tyler and anyone and go into more granular detail and with the setup and, data transfer as well.
Okay.
Good. Okay, anything more on this?
No, I'm just want to make sure you guys got a chance to see the
Yeah.
demo.
I found it very interesting, and I'm looking forward to discussing this with the other board members.
Exactly. This has been very useful and very, very good.
Good.
As questions arise, if you want to filter those through Dan, he can send those on to me either about the product or about, the process or the quote or any of that. So do not hesitate to be in touch if I can be of further assistance.
Reclaim the host there.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
can help these guys wrap this up.
Okay, great. Okay, guys, do we have more to do?
That was all I had
I think
expected.
that's the last thing on the agenda.
Do we have a
We
motion
have no
to
public
adjourn?
comment.
Any public? Well, we do have Jeff here, I guess. Jeff is still online.
Are there any comments? Excuse me.
And Paul's here, I guess.
Jeff or Paul? Have we bored to tears?
I don't have any comments for once.
Paul?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to share this with you. As the director of the Southern District representing the Virginia Electoral Board, one of my duties is to get around and actually participate in some of the electoral board meetings. And this makes it very convenient to do it electronically. So thank you for doing that. Just a few bits of information. One of you would have been reappointed to a new term. Who is that?
Me.
Okay, great. Great. Well, congratulations on your reappointment. I will remind you that you are required to attend the training boot camp that is required of new appointees and also reappointments. So the next opportunity for the training at boot camp is on February 1st. And the VIBA website already has the registration set up, so you can register for that. Or when you attend the annual conference, March 23rd through 25th, the first day of the VIBA conference will be boot camp. And that's another opportunity to do that. So I encourage you to participate to the extent you can. This is a really exciting year for VIBA. It's our 50th anniversary as a professional association, and there's a lot of things that are going to happen in a really exciting, positive way at the conference. So I encourage everyone to participate if you possibly can. We're going to be focusing on security, on ethics. We're going to have the opportunity for breakouts for like size localities, also district meetings. We're anticipating, and with a little bit of luck, I'm crossing my fingers here, our governor will be there to present as well. So put it on your calendar and plan to attend. Another one of my roles is to be a source of information. If ever you have a question or concern, and would like to have a third party chime in and help you, don't hesitate to give me a call. And if I can't answer or help you with your concern, I'll make absolutely sure that it's forwarded to the correct people so that you can get that handled. I also send out almost monthly updates. I hope you've been receiving those. The board of VIBA just met on Monday, and I will be drafting an update that'll go out tomorrow to everybody with all the news I just shared with you. So again, I know you're getting ready to get home. You've put a lot of hours into your hard work, and it's greatly appreciated. You are the custodians of the purity of our elections, and we certainly do appreciate that. So thanks again. I do have one question. I will be traveling to Caroline County on Friday, January the 31st. Daniel, will you be in your office that I could stop by and say hello, or if any of the board members are around?
Yeah, I'll be in the office.
Okay, great. I'll touch base with you. I need to drive out there I'm one of the facilitators for boot camp, and that's happening on the Saturday. So I have to pass by Lynchburg. So I will see if I can stop in and say hello and see your facility.
The 31st of January. Okay, on the
Okay.
1st.
Yep, great. Okay, and again, thank you very much for the opportunity to share with you, and Happy New Year, and have a terrific year.
Thanks,
Thank
Paul.
you. Thanks for your help.
Happy to do it.
Shall we have a motion to adjourn?
You shall, and you have one from me.
I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Good night.
Favor?
Thank you, everyone. I
Thank
look
you.
forward to getting to meet everyone in person.
Thanks so
Thank
much,
you.
y'all.
Thank you, everyone.
By the way, we will be attending, our company will be attending and bringing all of our products to the VIBA annual meeting in March. So that also is going to be an opportunity for you to meet all of us and see the products.
Sounds good.
That's good.
All right, thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care.
I have to say, their product sounds pretty interesting.